Hello, everybody. I am so excited. It is my honor. Bridge Sky here. You're listening to K.I.S.S. Recovery 101. I have the most bestest guest I've ever had. I have to say that. I have to throw that out there. So, this person wrote a few books actually. And this book really, changed my life. And I will go as far as say, saved my life. Wally P is an archivist, historian, and author. His primary area of interest is the miraculous growth of the 12 step movement in the 1940s. So from 1992 to 1993, Wally held the position of Arizona area archivist. From 94 to 95, he was a member of the National Archives Study Committee, reporting to the General Service Office in New York City. And since 1999, he has been the overseer of the personal archives of Dr. Bob and Ann Smith. He is the originator of Back to Basics. So I'm going to stop rambling. Would you like to say hello, my guest?
My guest is me.
No. That's you, Wally.
Wally P, member of the 12-step community.
Hello. And
I'm Britt P, and a member of the 12-step community, archivist, historian as well.
and Wally's better half?
That too. That too.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Always got to say that. Okay. So I'm super excited. Of course, I have a list of things that I would love to talk about. But more importantly, I want to know what you want to talk about, Wally. So I'm going to let you take it away and I'm going to follow your lead.
Oh, well, thank you, Bridge. Sure appreciate this opportunity to be of service to the 12-step community. I would like to start with my 12-step conversion experience in Akron, Ohio, which has led to this marvelous journey for the last 33 years. But at 1 year of sobriety, my sponsor, who had taken me through all 12 steps in 4 hours or less, I came in 88. My sponsor came in 68. His sponsor came in 48 and was sponsored by one of Dr. Bob's sponsees. So I am part of that original lineage back to the program of the 1940s when we did have a 50 to 75% recovery rate. But at 1 year of sobriety, he sat me down and said, Wally, I may not be alive much longer, but if you remember this one thing, you'll never find it necessary to take a drink or a drug for the rest of your life, whether I'm here or not. And I was on bated breath. What is he going to lay on me? And he said, if you don't know where we came from, you'll never know what a miracle this program truly is. And I did not know where we came from. In fact, I didn't care where we came from.
Matter of fact, you hated history.
Yes, I am a chemist with a master's degree in statistics. I do black and white. I don't do gray. I don't do the Civil War from the northern perspective, the southern perspective, the European perspective. I just want facts and figures. And as Britt said, I never took a history class unless it was forced upon me in order to graduate. And amazing how God has a plan for us beyond our wildest dreams, especially making somebody who hated history an AA archivist, historian, and author.
Yeah, that's a 180.
Absolutely. But when he mentioned that, about finding out where we came from, I went home and I took down off the shelf a book which I hadn't read, which was called Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. And I took the book into my little home group in the northwest side of Tucson, Arizona. And I was asking around before the meeting because there was a picture in the book, black and white, of this house at 855 Ardmore Avenue, Akron, Ohio. And I was asking my fellow home group members, ever been to Akron? Do you know if this house still exists? No, okay. Anybody been to Akron? No. Okay. And then Phil saw what I was doing, my sponsor, and he said, Wally, don't bother these people. If you want to find out about Dr. Bob's house, find out for yourself.
Wow.
And I'm sure he probably meant, give Akron a call, um, and talk to some people that could kind of give you some information. But me, still being new in sobriety, I jumped on an airplane and flew to Akron to find out if there was a Dr. Bob's house.
Mhm.
I took a red eye out of Tucson to Akron. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning, November 16th, 1989, with that little 1 year medallion in my pocket. And I made a phone call to the local AA hotline. It only cost a quarter. Of course, I
Wow.
wasn't thinking about the $350 I'd spent getting there to make this local phone call, but that's how it went down. She said, yes, there is a Dr. Bob's house. There wasn't up until 3 years ago when some
Mm.
members of the recovery community have purchased the house and they're in the process of refurbishing it back to the way it was in 1935 when this whole thing went down.
Wow.
And they have a meeting there today. And what I learned later is they only have one meeting a year in Dr. Bob's home. And I just happened to be there. Uh, she
Wow.
said, if you make a commitment, I'll make a commitment. My commitment was to rent a car and drive to the Arid Club, which was right off the freeway. In fact, it was at the base of the off ramp. That was easy because she said, you'll never find Dr. Bob's house on your own. Again, this is before MapQuest and
Oh
all
yeah.
GPS stuff today. And she was right. I would never have found the house on my own, but she called ahead to the club, and two people were waiting for me at the Arid Club, and they got in their car, and I got in my car and followed them. They weren't even going to the meeting; they were just pointing out where the house was, and then they took off. Gave them $10 to put in the gas tank, and there I am standing in the doorway because the house is filled to the rafters with people. A very small house, 70, 80 people were trying to get into this meeting, the one meeting a year that they have in Dr. Bob's living room. They had
Wow.
taken the furniture out of the living room and they put a table. There were 8 chairs around the table, and it was a speaker meeting. And the only requirement to speak is you had to have 40 years of sobriety
40 years.
or zero.
Yes.
Wow.
I know in 2028, I may get the opportunity to share at that meeting, but not before.
They may
So
change the requirement by then with more and more people getting up to 40 years.
move it to 50. I'll be waiting for them.
Well, I'll speak on your behalf when I make it there.
Oh,
Aw.
it's just to have so much fun with this. But this was, without a doubt, a major 12-step white light conversion experience because I'm standing in the doorway listening to 8 people who were personally sponsored by Dr. Bob,
Wow.
taken through the steps in one day, and were sponsoring within a week. And
Wow.
that was the original program of recovery. And that's
Yes.
the program that I realized after listening to them that I had been taken through. Steps in 4 hours or less and get out there and help somebody else. Dr. Bob boiled things down to the ultimate simplicity, trust God, clean house, help others. That
Mhm.
is the original program. And it's not all about, you know, 90 meetings in 90 days. Again, there was only one meeting a week back then when we had a 50 to 75% recovery rate. So obviously, meetings didn't have a basis of this 50 to 75% recovery
I
rate.
forget what page it is in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers that it says meetings were optional.
Yes.
Dr. Bob had a plan laid out, and there were a couple of requirements, I think 4 to be exact. I'm correct, Rob, Wally. And then there were a couple of options. And meetings, the one meeting a week or going someplace else to a meeting, was actually an optional thing.
Hmm.
Everything else, the requirement things, had to do with taking the steps.
And there's another lost piece of our history, not lost to Akron, because Akron, Cleveland, and Detroit still published the original pamphlets that were written at the behest of Dr. Bob in the
Wow.
early 1940s.
Wow.
And the first one is titled A Guide to the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is what's on the first page. This guide to the 12 steps is intended as a simple, short, and concise interpretation of the methodology for sober living as compiled by the earliest members of the 12-step community. The writers and editors are members of the Akron, Ohio group, which was formed in 1935. Most of the ideas and explanations were brought out in a series of beginners' meetings, right there in the first paragraph, conducted by veteran members of the group. So beginners meetings were an integral part of our 50 to 75% recovery rate. Next paragraph. It is important that the newcomer be introduced to the 12 steps at as early a date as possible. Upon this principle depends his or her full recovery. If you feel the steps are a bit too complicated at first, you can introduce them to your newcomer in a simplified form, going into the complete program later.
And can I just chime in here?
Mm-hmm.
Right in the introduction of Back to the Basics, and I've actually I'm over into the Back to the Basics of Recovery, the other color book. But in the introduction, it says, and I love this. I mean, I always say this when I do the workshops with my other facilitator. Prior to the publication of this book in 1997, the beginners' meetings were a forgotten piece of Alcoholics Anonymous history. Very few people in recovery knew anything about the 4 1-hour sessions that played such an important role in the initial success of the 12-step movement. These meetings were held throughout the U.S. and Canada during a period of time when AA enjoyed a 50 to 75% recovery rate from alcoholism. Newcomers quickly learned how it works. They had conversion experiences, discovered a new way of living without alcohol, and carried their message of hope to others. So by taking the 12 steps in these beginners meetings, tens of thousands of AAs found the spiritual solution to alcoholism. They completed the steps about a month. And then, in order to ensure their own sobriety, I think this is key, they helped others through the recovery process. So, this book is a reenactment of these sessions as they were held in the mid 1940s. This AA meeting format is based solely on the author's interpretation of the available source material. And what I love too is that here, we're going to jump down. So, but please keep in mind that those who have remained true to Dr. Bob's keep it simple philosophy have the greatest success. Bam! And that is beautiful. And I'll tell you, if you guys have noticed, KISS is an acronym for keep it simple, stupid. Because that was me. I couldn't keep anything simple until I heard the extra S, and then I realized, wow, it really dumbed it down. And I realized I needed to calm down a bit and then to just take it one day at a time. And I'm going to share a quote, Wally. I'm going to share your quote. It says, step takers, not meeting makers, make it. Meeting makers make meetings. Step takers make a difference. Ooh, I love that.
I do too. Who wrote that?
Oh,
That's you. I quoted you.
you did.
My short-term
That
memory
is
loss
so
kicking in.
true.
And that's the simple truth of it. Meeting makers make meetings.
Mhm.
And I mean, I know we need the people who set up the coffee and the chairs, no longer the ashtrays. But it's the step takers. It's the ones who are doing the work. The
Mhm.
ones who are actively grabbing that new person who doesn't look familiar to them when they walk through the door and saying, are you visiting the area or are you a newcomer? Is this your first meeting? You
Mhm.
know? And we don't see that today. People come in, they get their coffee or they bring their something to drink with them. And then as soon as the meeting's over, they leave. And anybody who may be new, you know, they don't get that interaction because people are too busy trying to get out of there. And why would we expect a sick person to come to somebody who's well, or however you would like to interpret that? um you know, back in the 40s, it was the veterans. Even if you were a veteran by a day or a week,
Mm-hmm.
you were the one reaching out, not waiting for the newcomer who has the shivers and shakes coming through the door to reach out. And that's where I think we've misstepped
Oh,
somewhere
big
along the
time.
way,
That's
you
beautiful.
know.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I have so many people coming up to me. I'll suggest this meeting or that meeting. Like, I know that there's usually a good, whatever structure, and they'll come back to me. Yeah, I went. How was it? Well, it was good, but I felt uncomfortable. What do you mean you felt it? Well, nobody talked to me. I'm like, nobody talked to you because
Mm.
I am that person. The newcomer is the most important person in that room.
Yeah. And
You know?
even if it's not a newcomer, even if it's a visitor,
Yeah.
Wally and I have had the pleasure of being able to travel all around the world. And when I walk into a meeting where I don't know anybody, having somebody come up and introduce themselves and ask if I'm a newcomer or if I'm just visiting the area makes a lot of difference
Oh,
to me,
definitely.
you
Absolutely.
know. Just to feel that welcoming spirit.
And it was
Yes.
a position that was held during the early days. There would always be a person designated to stand at the door
Hmm.
and be the greeter. You
Yes.
just don't see greeters anymore like we used to, even back in the 80s and 90s. Um, but again, back in the 40s, they were called sniffers. And
Why are
if they smelt alcohol on your breath, they would have one or two people ready to go to have them uh, leave the meeting and have a private meeting with the
oh,
one or two home group members, so they wouldn't be disrupting or making a mockery out of the recovery process. So sniffers, uh, they directed the ones that had a clean breath uh, with another couple of questions. Have you been to this meeting before? No. Um, have you taken the steps? No. There's your sponsor, and I'm going to have him come over and introduce himself. And the two of you are going to go in the back room. And in the next 4 weeks, you're going to take 4 1-hour sessions. You will recover from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, and then we will introduce you to the group. So the people that are sitting in the front room have all taken the 12 steps. There was no blind leading the blind like we see and hear today.
oh my goodness. Yes. And I 100%. Oh man, I go to the meetings where I know the people that are leading or speaking or whatever live this program. They walk the walk. Like, I know they're not just preaching to the choir. I know they're not just telling me these are the steps I need to do. I know that they live those steps. I can hear it in their voice. I can see it in their passion. That was the inspiration for me when I found back to basics. And I met Jason at the time, who was facilitating that. I was so fed up with, I was court ordered to do the AA meetings and whatnot, and I couldn't find that connection. And I felt like a lot of those groups were just, reading their normal readings, but they didn't actually know what they were talking about. Oop, there's our first alarm. Did you guys hear the alarm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we
That
did.
just means we get to check it, make sure that we're. Oh, I forgot to mention. So, listeners, I encourage you and welcome you. Ask. Oh, Rick said. Oh, Rick was laughing out loud. I don't know where that was from. But any listeners, I please encourage you. We're live for a reason. I want you to ask questions, make comments. anything that you want to share. This is definitely a two-way. Well, tonight we're four-way show. So that could be misinterpreted. But one thing, just go back to what we were talking about, is that I love that. So if you have the actual Back to Basic books, I love history. So I went into all the depths of this, and it says in many areas of the U.S. and Canada, the newcomer could not attend regular meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous until he or she had completed the 12 steps in the beginners meetings, and they actually had to carry around a sobriety card, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. Oh my gosh, I wish that was still a thing, because then, at least somebody's gone through at least the process once. But I've taken a few of your guys' workshops, actually, and I love the theme of, well, I just remember hearing over and over, quickly and often, quickly and often, quickly and often. And that was for me. I didn't, in the beginning, I remember thinking, oh, one and done, I get these done, and okay, I never have to worry about this again. And after I got through the 12 steps, like, wow, this is going to be forever in a good way. It's
Well,
going through them again.
the beauty of that bridge is the quickly and often
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that I can sit there and do what's eating my lunch today. It may not be something that's current. It may be something from my past that's come up. Sometimes some things show up quickly, some things show up slowly.
Mm.
And in doing that fourth and fifth, I do what's eating my lunch today. You know,
Mm.
not what
Mm-hmm.
ate my lunch 30 years ago or 50 years ago, but what's eating my lunch today. And sometimes, like I said, it may be an event that happened 30, 40 years ago that's eating my lunch today for whatever reason, that's crept back up or in or whatever. And I can get rid of it. And so quickly and often, when you're doing them quickly and often, and revisiting 10 as well, you get rid of all of that instead of that long, laborious, dreaded fourth step that we all hear about in meetings that scares everybody half to death.
Well, I'd like to mention a personal friend of mine that I was able to travel with for 10 years. His name is James H. And James H. got sober on December 12th, 1934, one day after Bill Wilson and 6 months before Dr. Bob. He
Oh.
could have been one of the tri-founders of AA, but he did not want any notoriety. He just worked in the trenches, and there's no telling how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that he'd taken through the steps over the 71 years of sobriety that he had when he passed away. But James, one of his one-liners is, we can live in the past and make excuses, or live in the present and make a difference.
I love that.
I know, because that's just it. So many of us never get beyond that fourth step. Poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me, and you know the rest of that one. But the whole idea was to take the steps each and every day.
Mm-hmm.
Old timers, what step are you on? Answer, all of them.
I love that.
And they meant it too.
You know,
You make
Mm-hmm.
a surrender every morning, steps 1, 2, and 3. You share with others throughout the day the things that are bothering you. There's 4, 5, 6, and 7. You make amends to those you've harmed. You forgive those who have harmed you. There's 8 and 9. And you do the nightly review, which is part of steps 10, 11, and 12. And then you get to start over the next day and do it again and again and again and again. It's not the steps to get a big gold star. It's a new way of living.
Yes. Yes.
That's the
100%.
key. Is people recovered ED? Yes, they did. Which it's in the big book 17 times. All it means is that it identifies those who have taken the steps from those who haven't taken all 12 steps, and they were considered to be recovering. That's also in the book. the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous.
One time, I believe.
Yeah,
Yes.
17 versus 1. I think I'll stick with recovery.
And the to back that theory of doing them every day. I mean, Dr. Bob, if we look at Dr. Bob's track record in a 10-year time span, he took roughly 5,000 people through the steps. That's 1.3 a day.
Wow. I remember the story. I heard a story that James, like the ones who really do those steps in an emergency on a napkin, could take a guy out in the parking lot and get him through those steps in 15 minutes, something crazy like that.
5.
That's experience. That's crazy.
It can be done in 5.
Yeah, James was a master at it, though. He would get to cause and conditions within a couple of minutes, come up with a game plan to resolve the situation, and then they'd pray about it. And after the role play back and forth, I'll go out and do it. And starting tomorrow morning, get quiet, listen to God, and let God guide and let God provide. Real simple, really straightforward.
Oh, we have a listener. Oh, it's Rick again. He says, back to basics works. Love Wally and all he has done and continues to do in the 12-step recovery fellowship. Can he talk on the, in quotes, we agnostics? Was Bill agnostic? That's a question to you, Wally.
Okay, well, there was a war going on during 1938 when the book was being put together. And there was the basically the atheist contingency, which was headed up by Hank Parkhurst, who was the spark plug behind all of the writings of the Big Book. He edited every page of the book, and he also came up with all the chapter headings. And it was his secretary, Ruth Hawk, that typed up Bill's ramblings. Again, the Big Book is not a textbook for recovery. It's a stream of consciousness, which is why it wanders all over the place. Once you realize that it's not a textbook, but a stream of consciousness, it's a lot easier to understand what they were up to. And then Dr. Bob and the pioneers out of Akron and Cleveland, they went and stripped out 95% of the book as soon as it was released, saying it was complicated for newcomers, and gave us about 50 paragraphs to take people through the steps, which is why it can be done in a matter of 3 to 4 hours. The other contingency, trying to remember the people who were in that. Fitz Mayo was one of them, and Jimmy Burwell was the other. And they didn't want an atheist book. They wanted a Christian book. Again, the atheist contingency, they wanted all references to God taken out of the book. And the Christian contingency, they wanted Jesus put in the book. They went back and forth, and that's where God as you understand him comes from. That was the compromise. And thank God there was compromise, because that book would never have been finished. They'd still be arguing about it today in their graves.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think it took both Bill and Bob. One being the go-getter and the big dreamer, and the other one who AA would have never gotten out of Akron or the Akron area if it had been left to him. So to Dr. Bob. So we need that balance.
Oh, I didn't mention about where Bill Wilson stood on this. He did have some religious upbringing in East Dorset, Vermont, but he never really confessed to being a Christian. He was much more interested in basic spirituality, which is why he was a great arbiter between these two groups that were warring with each other.
Yes.
In the 1940s, he did uh, think it would be in his best interest to join a church, and he was going to join the Catholic Church. And he went through the catechism with who's the priest out of St. Louis?
Father Dowling.
Father Dowling. Thank you. My brain cells lived in the name of Brit. Father Dowling
That's why we
was a
compliment each other.
major supporter of the work. And when Bill finished up the catechism, he received divine guidance not to join the church. If he joined the Catholic Church, maybe a whole bunch of other people would think that they had to join the Catholic Church also. And so he stayed pretty much an agnostic most of his life.
Wow. Okay, I gotta ask you this, archivist Dr. Bob stuff. Do you have Dr. Bob's like medicine bag? Do you have access to like
The
what
medicine
is
bag?
that what his actual like doctor bag like what's kind of the cool things that as the
Oh, what a story. Again, in that living room on November 16th, 1989, when the meeting broke up, a lot of people had discovered that I traveled the furthest to go to a meeting that I didn't know existed. So they introduced me to all 8 of the old timers, and I got all their phone numbers, and I did call them. I did record each and every one of them, some on numerous occasions, about the original program of recovery. But after that, they took me to the kitchen, and Sue Smith Windows, Dr. Bob's daughter, was serving coffee behind the kitchen table. And some reason she realized that I was terrified of people. She was terrified of people. My fear came from Vietnam. Her fear was just from childhood, having a drunk father coming home. He wasn't a mean drunk, but just being a drunk brightened the living daylights out of her. And she recognized what was going on. She said, "You come over and sit next to me." And became the best of friends. And I'm considered to be part of the Smith family. Smith Windows was one of my moms. And Smitty, Dr. Bob's son, sponsored my daughter in Al-Anon. I spent time both in Akron and Nacona, Texas, with the Children of the Healer. But in 1999, we almost lost Sue due to pneumonia. And when we got out of the hospital, she called me and said, "Of the 2 million people in Alcoholics Anonymous, you're the only person I trust to find a home for mom and dad's stuff."
Oh my goodness.
What stuff? Been in my attic since my dad died on November 16th, 1950.
Wow.
So I jumped on an airplane and flew to Akron, and I was the first person to walk those steps up to the attic. And I immediately came down because it was so dusty I couldn't even breathe. Went to Home Depot and got some dust masks and spent the next 7 days in the attic.
Wow.
Cataloging everything that would be considered part of the Dr. Bob and Ann Smith personal archives, including Dr. Bob's golf clubs. He only had a few of them. Yeah, he was a golfer, but I can't see having 1 wood and 3 irons and a putter get you too far in the game.
No, not too far.
But again, his doctor bag was up there, and we arranged for the entire archives to be moved from the attic, Sue Smith Windows attic. The roof was leaking.
Wow.
Some of the archives were seriously compromised as a result of the leaks in the roof. And we transported them to the Rockefeller Library at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Why would they be there? Well, a man who headed up the alcohol program at Brown University was not one of us. He was like Sam Shoemaker. He was just a friend of. But him and his friends ponied up almost $1 million for the
Wow.
conservation and preservation of Dr. Bob and Ed Smith's archives. And they needed all of it to have it available to anybody and everybody. It's online if you want to review it, everything that's in there. And you can actually ask for the baseball that was signed by the Cleveland Indians because Dr. Bob sobered up Raleigh Hemsley,
Mhm.
who,
Oh,
yeah, that is an amazing story
Yeah,
there.
in April of 1939.
Yes,
wow.
again, Raleigh Hemsley he drank himself out of 4 major league teams, but he was one hell of a catcher. And Cleveland Indians picked him up, and their first game was with the New York Yankees. But on the train from Florida to New York, Raleigh was drunk as a skunk and made a ruckus, and they threw him off the train. And
My goodness.
the coach called Dr. Bob in Akron. Somehow, because there was the Cleveland Indians, they knew Dr. Bob was doing something down there in Akron. And the coach said, if you can sober this guy up, we'll give you $1,000 now, which would be $20,000 today, and $1,000 if he's sober 30 days later. So Dr. Bob foregoes $40,000 to practice our traditions that didn't exist back then, but were being formed. And that was, we can accept no money for 12-step work, which is why I accept no money from the sale of any literature that I've written. This is my 12-step call for which we cannot be paid.
Not to mention the fact no money changed hands when you helped transfer the stuff from Sue's
that's right.
from
Yes.
Sue's attic to Brown University. Wally didn't receive a dime for that. So
Again,
Yeah.
I learned real easy, real soon in my archival journey about a guy by, again, the first Catholic priest in AA, Father John Doe. And he wrote some golden books out of St. Louis, about 20 of them in total, basic principles of recovery. And he would share from the podium, to be criticized in Alcoholics Anonymous, do something, anything.
Yep.
Wow.
If you're going to do something in the fellowship, you are going to be criticized, and it's all fine because once you've recovered from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, I pay these people no mind. I pray for them. I wish them well. And I get on with my job of trying to save Alcoholics Anonymous. We're not going to go very far into the 21st century with a 5 to 7% recovery rate.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And here's what I want to bring up. I have to say, this back to basics, the way it was done before, is what I wanted everyone to know about, So I got this, I did the surrender. I did the back to basics. I started right away after my 12th step. I just started doing service and taking people through the steps. And I found a lot of reservations and a lot of walls up when I started talking about this concept. And so I remember having a conversation about this. Wally, if we could just talk about it briefly, there's 4 main reasons why people don't, aren't able to accept or whatever with back to basics, back to the basics, that concept.
Oh, I like your terminology, to accept back to basics. Now, this came from James H., my spiritual guide from 1996 until he passed away in 2006. We traveled all over the country doing the work. I would do back to basics during the day, 9:30 to 4:30, and then he would come on at 5 o'clock. Again, the guy is 92, 96, 98 years of age. So he's doing the 5 to 6 p.m. slot. And we would average maybe 200 to 300 for back to basics. And we had about 1,000 to 1,500 for James.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Oh,
And-
everybody wanted to hear what Daddy Jim had to say.
But
Oh,
that's when he
yeah.
came up with this, and this is strictly James H. The four groups are diametrically opposed to back to basics. One, the atheists, and there are a lot of atheists in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. He realized that, and again, he put that at the top of the list of people who do not agree with any part of a spiritual solution to addiction. So sad, because all we have to offer is a spiritual program. James saw the program being hijacked by the psychological community. And so much of what you hear and see today is psychologically based rather than spiritually based. The spiritually basis is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. The number two group is those that have never taken the steps and don't want you to know it. Again, a very large group of people in the rooms.
Yes.
And they will give you the smoke and mirrors, but they've never done the work.
Right.
It's obvious just listening to them.
Those meeting makers.
Yep, they're the meeting. 9 meetings and 9 today.
The 1, 2, or they've only done the 1, 2, 3 shuffle.
They certainly have not recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. They're angry. And it's their anger they take out on back to basics, because they find that they're being challenged and they have to continue to live the lie. And back to basics, again, over the years, Britt and I have taken more than 100,000 through the steps in these seminars, with a 50 to 75% recovery rate of those who are willing to do 3 of them, just like in the early days.
Yeah.
When you went through the steps 3 times before they did the math, came up with a 50% recovery rate. And if you went through the beginners meeting 6 times, there was a 70% recovery rate. So, and I was able to validate that beyond a shadow of a doubt. Some people say, well, you've always had a 5% recovery rate. No, we haven't. And I've got all the proof. I do have 100,000 pages of material to back me up. What if you got to back you up?
Exactly.
Now, the third group is a very interesting group that James would have nailed this the way he did. Sponsors playing God.
Oh, mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop.
I see that all over the place.
Sponsors who want to run newcomers' lives.
Yep.
Dictators.
1 step a month. No steps for the first year. I will tell you who you can date and who you can't date. I'll tell you what you can wear and what you can't wear. I will tell you everything that you need to know, including what to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you have to call me every day at 6:04 p.m.
Let's not forget the 4-year 4-step.
And the 4-year 4-step.
Oh, geez. Drill sergeants.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a
Now,
power thing.
The fourth group is the uninformed and the misinformed. And then James would summarize the uninformed and misinformed. All they need to do is go to a back to basics meeting and their lives will be changed, just like the others who go to back to basics.
Yes.
So they become informed that this really works. Going up to the top of the list, the atheists, they go to back to basics and they come to believe in something that's greater than themselves, that resides inside each and every one of us. The the people that have never taken the steps, having taken that 100,000 through, I mean, I cannot tell you how many thousands of people have come up after the seminars and said, I no longer have to live the lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got 10 years
Yeah.
sobriety. I got 15 years of sobriety. I have 30 years of sobriety and I've never done the work until today.
Yes.
Wow. But be careful about the sponsors playing God. James said, we will never touch them because they will never give up their position of power.
That's reality.
That's
You know, and for the atheists, for the uninformed or ill-informed, misinformed, um, and those who haven't taken the steps but are sitting in meetings, and for those three groups that have come to Back to Basics meetings or to one of the workshops that we've done, Wally and I have the great perspective, and those also who lead other workshop, Back to Basics workshops and whatnot. We sit in such a great position because as we're doing the work with you, we see the changes. We can see the body language, and you can see the lights come on, and you can see a glow come about, and that fills our cup.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, we got the hot seat coming up, but I just wanted to. We have more interactions. Rick wants to know what is the difference between Back to Basics book and the new Back to the Basics recovery book, and how can he get a hold of Mr. Wally P and purchase this new Back to Basics recovery book?
okay. Again, doing the original 1946 beginners meetings, using the big book as written, definitely has changed hundreds of thousands of lives. But we're realizing as the years are going on that more and more members of Cocaine Anonymous are attending the meetings. More and more Al-Anons are attending the meetings. More and
Yes.
more sex addicts are attending the meetings.
Always.
So I realized that we needed to modify the yellow book so that it would be all inclusive.
And I love that.
And so do a big number of other people, large number of other people,
including a lot of women. And I say that because in writing it, Wally took out the he's, the hims,
Yes.
and made it gender neutral.
Yes.
So nobody has to feel uncomfortable.
Yes, and not to offend you, Wally, but I don't even use the yellow book anymore.
Oh.
No, it's an evolution. That's
Yes.
And again, we just recognized what's going on at the seminars and took corrective action. The beige book, the Back to the Basics of Recovery, was written in 2015, released in January of 2016. And guess who's trying to steal our thunder?
Whew.
GSO in New York.
Of course.
The
Of
Literature
course.
Committee wants to come up with a modern version of the big book. All
Yeah.
they have to do is pick up a beige book, and they've already got one.
Right? So what's your website?
So the website is www.aabacktobasics.org.
Fantastic.
And
And
then
it is great.
at the top, there is a link to the bookstore, and they can find the yellow book, the Back to Basics of Recovery. They can find the beige book.
And How to Listen to God.
They can find a book that Wally wrote about how to listen to God and his travels and whatnot with James H.
Yes,
But
and
also, what's in the middle of that book is how Bill, Bob, and the pioneers took the steps before the big book was written. There was a very simple 4-step process. Bill tried to convert the 4 to 6, got them out of order. made a mess out of things, and at the 85 to 90% of the book was finished when he tipped in the 12 steps the second week in December 1938. So a lot of what he wrote in the steps doesn't match what is actually written between the steps, but we've cleaned all that up for him.
Yeah. And then on the website as well, you can also, we have recordings on there of workshops, including workshops that Wally did when James H. was still alive.
Yeah. And back to the basics of recovery also is available ebook at Amazon.com.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so it's out there. But yeah, I encourage you at least first go to the website, the AAbacktobasics.org. Everything's there. The workshops, like when you do another workshop, I'm gonna be there. But definitely all the you have everything on there, like anything you could possibly imagine. Articles. There's a great article by Michael Levin. How do you sponsor effectively in AA? Oh, he taps into, a lot of people don't even realize like sponsor wasn't a thing. That became its own thing, a sponsor. I like it back to basics. When we do the workshops, we do so you could do that your sponsor or a sharing partner, right? And just I love you have a workshop that's called Back to the Basics of Sponsorships, sponsorship with the key concepts from the 1940s. And I tell you, I hit some people in my rooms with some of these things of there was 7 that blew their mind. And some of them right away would say, "Oh, I'm not doing that. That don't make no sense." I'm like, "Oh, really? Let's sit down and talk about it. Let's have a dialogue about it." But they make sense. They made sense to me, being that I see it today, where I'm at today, good in my, feeling good in my recovery, and you have someone sit in front of you with the shaky hands and having withdrawals and deep depression. Of course I'm going to sit down and call them first. Of course I'm going to sit down and write out their inventory for them. And I've had sponsors that are in the room say, no, they need to write it out. They need to call me. It's on them. And it just blows my mind. Ugh.
That's the difference between a spiritual program of recovery and a psychological program of disrecovery or unrecovery.
It's funny, Bridge, that you should mention Back to Basics of sponsorship. We're hoping within the next 9 months to have that new book released.
Oh my gosh. Yes, so please.
I'll put it out here first and foremost.
That means you guys are going to come back on, right?
We'll be glad to. That we are working on a new book.
I would love to tap into that.
We've done all the research prior to the COVID, doing live sponsorship workshops, and then during COVID, doing the sponsorship workshops on Zoom. And so we have all the material now to put the book together, along with a meeting leader guide for it.
That'd be fantastic.
And so hopefully 9 months from now, we will have that available.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, are you guys hearing the crackling sound? Yes. It's supposed to be fire, which is supposed to be hotness, you guys. Woo. Okay, Wally, here we go. You're on the hot seat. Are you ready?
I am ready. Bring it on.
Okay, so if you are new to the show, the first time ever listening, I'll tell you what the hot seat is. It's 3 hot and heavy questions that I'm going to ask Wally, and they're not meant to make you feel awkward. They're not meant to make you feel, just uncomfortable, but they are deeper questions. And the idea behind them is simply, someone else out there listening might have asked themselves these questions, and something you say they could connect with. So here we go, Wally. Question number 1. You're on the hot seat. What's the craziest thing you've done in the name of love? I like to start it with a positive one.
Yeah, Britt's already laughing.
Here we go. This is going to be juicy.
So in February 2017, I'm doing Back to Basics of Recovery in Fort Myers, Florida. And for whatever reason, the taper for the event canceled 3 weeks before, and Britt got picked up on waivers. to be the taper for this weekend.
Hmm.
Now, I don't recall, but people in the audience told me that Friday night when I was doing history presentations, I kept looking over at the taper table where Britt was, and back to the audience, and then back to the table, and back to the audience. And one of my personal longtime friends, who is responsible for the NA version of Back to Basics, using the NA literature. There's a lot of that going down too. And it's Work the Steps or Die. Thank you, Bill L. He nudged his sponsee and said, I'm going to make a bet with you. That's Wally's next wife.
What? Wow.
And Saturday night, we finished up Back to Basics of Recovery. There's a private dinner, 40 people at a restaurant that's only open for breakfast and lunch with the owners in recovery. And I'm at one table and just chatting up. And then Britt's the last person to come in because she's having to break down all of that taping gear. And Mike, our host, he got up and said, Britt said, is there any place for me? Is there a chair anywhere in here? And he said, yeah, right next to Wally.
Oh.
Which wasn't there until some miracle of miracles. It just manifested out of the ether. This waitress came over and said, Wally, is this your beautiful wife?
Wow.
And somebody across the table is taking photographs. So we've got photographic evidence of this. And I said, no, I met her yesterday and I'm going to marry her tomorrow.
No.
This is my future wife.
My future wife, yes.
I met her yesterday. I'm going to marry her tomorrow.
And to seal the deal, Sunday afternoon, when we're doing 11-step guidance meeting, the history of the 11-step guidance meeting, Britt's got the tape running, and I said, I have to make an announcement to the entire group that I just got engaged last night to our beautiful taper.
I'm in the back of the room going, shut up. Shut up. I mean, Saturday night was bad enough. I almost literally choked on my food when he said that I was his future wife, right?
Future wifey.
And then for him to say that the next morning with the tape rolling, and I'm like, my sponsor is going to hear this. Oh, I'm my dead meat. But yeah.
And it became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And here you are today.
Yeah, we've been together ever since.
How long have you guys been married?
Over 5.
Nice. Oh, see, find love. Don't give up hope. All you
we got
folks
married
out there.
at the end of a Back to Basics seminar.
Oh.
I figured, why do a church? We're going to do it in our church, which was an auditorium of a hospital in Lansing, Michigan. If anybody'd like to stick around, we're going to get married after this meeting.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I love it.
He didn't even have a firm yes from me at that point either.
Well, he's a confident person. Okay. That was an easy one. Are you ready for question number 2? Wally, what really makes you angry?
Well, now nothing, because I have not only recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body pertaining to anger, I've had a chance to pass it on to countless others. But when I walked into the rooms, my anger was directed towards God and Vietnam, the Vietnam War. Phil, my first sponsor, he pinned my ears back on the Vietnam War part. I was belly aching after a meeting. He said, Wally, what the hell are you talking about? God didn't have anything to do with the Vietnam War. just a bunch of selfish, self-centered sons of bitches fighting over some oil deposits in the South China Sea. What you saw were people who didn't have God in their lives.
Mm,
Wow, that changed
wow.
everything.
Mhm.
Uh, I enrolled in the VA program starting in 2002. They immediately sent me to anger management school. So I guess I still had a little residual anger at that time.
Sure.
It was 16 weeks, 1.5 hours on a Wednesday night for 16 weeks. And I learned a tremendous amount of information on how to move from anger to reconciliation. Um, Again, normal people can deal with anger in an hour. We hold
Mhm.
on to it for days, weeks, months, and years,
Oh yeah.
which is why we keep writing all these inventories.
Yeah.
And I do have
If you want to know what you will look like when you grow old.
Okay, we're running out of time. We're low on time here.
okay.
Keep going. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, and that's it. Anger Management 101. I have the VA to thank for that.
Well, yeah, and that's awesome. But I feel like for me, the steps is a program of self-reflection. I mean, and a big awareness. I'm able to catch that anger and work on it right away instead of letting it bottle up, build up, and get a very resentful person. Okay. Question number 3, Wally. Who hurt you the most before recovery? And follow-up question would be, who who hurt you once you after you found recovery?
In terms of the hurt before, I have to say I hurt myself.
Mm.
I'm
Mhm.
a hippie from the 60s. I am a Woodstock survivor. Uh, I truly believe that LSD was the shortcut to nirvana. Thank you, Timothy Leary. And, um, I hurt a lot of people, including myself,
Yeah.
with that belief system. I also believe that I wasn't an alcoholic. I mean, I believed the lie.
Yeah.
And I actually walked into my first AA meeting to prove I wasn't an alcoholic.
Mhm.
I didn't come in here just to say, cure me. I came
Right.
in to prove that I didn't have this illness to begin with.
And
Mhm.
so you get a dinner date.
And we saw how well that worked. In terms of today, wow, I do put on the full suit of armor every morning because I am very, very well aware that there are people in the rooms that hate my guts
Mm.
and think I'm the personification of Satan and aren't afraid to put it in emails and text messages.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
so, yeah, it hurts a little bit that they're still part of that four-way, four group that James came up with the atheists, the uninformed, misinformed, the those that have never taken the steps and don't want you to know it, and sponsors playing God. But
Mhm.
I deal with them the best I can, which is to pray for them and wish them well.
Yes, they're sick people.
Yep.
Sick people. That's the reality. And yes, I find that my guest last week, Rob made a point to say not everyone in recovery is your friend. That's the cold hard truth. And it's better to learn that sooner than later. Um, but it is that, like it says in the book. Uh, think of that person as you would if it was a sick friend. So even if it's someone that I maybe thought they were different, I look at them as if it was someone that I didn't have anger with right now. Like my friend Andrea. If it was her being saying these things or treating me that way, of course I'm going to give her a different treatment than I would somebody who doesn't really know me. So if that makes sense. But okay, wonderful. That was fantastic. We are going to jump right into last segment here, which is mostly just for fun. I gotta tell you though, I did make sure there was a couple aha or inspiring ones in there. This is the live Facebook memes.
Oh,
I've been getting,
one of my favorite programs.
right? Getting funky with the sound effects. But so yeah, this is like if you are familiar with memes, we're gonna flash you these memes live right on your screen. And yes, the listeners can see them now, thankfully, so you don't have to describe them. But if you don't mind, you or Brett, please just read what's on the meme, and like Facebook, give me your comment, give me your reaction live, and we're just gonna have a little dialogue about that. You ready? There's only 7. I kept it minimal this time. Okay, meme number 1.
Introverts Anonymous. Nobody showed up again, sir. Whew. Thank God.
Wow. When I was terrified of people, because of what happened to me in Vietnam, I was almost killed in a crowd. I was a card carrying member of Introverts Anonymous.
Same.
Good show.
And I just thought, yeah, I've definitely come a long way. And I still get introverty, but there's times when, yeah, just like, oh, nobody's coming. Perfect. So let's take it. Okay, anyway, sorry. I had to play on the anonymous thing. Here we go. Meme number 2.
The man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right. Confucius.
Yes.
I know they're both right in their own minds. But again, is to have that open mind, which comes as a result of taking the steps, that you are able to transcend this duality of existence and feel one with the universe. It's a good feeling.
Right. Do you want to be the person that thinks you can? Okay. Or are you going to be that person that thinks you can't?
Exactly.
You're both right. Yeah, you choose it.
Bridge, I heard Yoda's voice all of a sudden, do or do not. There is no try.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Good stuff.
Meme number 3, this is for laughs, I think. So Lady Gardner, somebody, one of you two want to read that?
Remember, when you bury a body, cover it with endangered plants, so it's illegal to dig up. Follow me for more gardening tips. I love it.
It's good.
I love that.
And that's why I never go with my first thought after reading this one. Okay.
Well, I buried a body or two, and they're me in a previous lifetime. And I have no intention of digging those old Wally peas up. And every time I even get in that frame of mind, I've got somebody here to slap the living daylights out of me.
I do have a iron skillet.
I do it. Yes. Well, I have the Ager. I will work on the Ager, so it doesn't come to that. But it was a good first thought. Okay. Meme number 4.
Omnist. A person who does not claim any one religion, practice, or belief, but finds truth in them all.
What do you think?
Yay, Bill W.
Yes.
Yay, Wally P. I mean, this is my belief system.
Yeah. When I work with the treatment centers and take groups into the treatment centers and do back to basics with them, I do a preschool version. That's a whole nother topic, but I tell them as long as they have a power that's out there that resides in them, that's all I care about. I don't care what name they give it,
Yeah.
Just know that, whatever you believe in that's out there that's bigger than you, it's okay.
Yes. I love that one. Oh, so it's perfect.
Oh my God.
I love that one. I've seen that one a few times, and I
read that out loud. Read it out loud.
I love that one. Absolutely.
Again, Bill L., who wrote Work the Steps or Die for NA, He sent me that. I don't know how many years ago, but it's true.
It says meetings and no step work is just coffee and bullshit. This is perfect. It's spot
That's a
on.
truism.
Coffee and yep.
Okay. And beam number 6.
Oh
Sorry.
my
You
God.
might be a little problem. There's a you see
Where do
someone
you
sitting
find these?
On Facebook.
on a toilet and
When
instead
you
of
know
underwear,
it's time to do laundry.
they got a face mask between their legs. When you
Two
know it's time
legs
to
and
do
face.
laundry.
That's clever.
Yes. And
No,
it's so
that's
over
when
the masks.
that's when you're still out there ripping and running, and you totally lost sensibility of what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
That's
Indeed.
step
Okay.
zero.
That is so step zero.
All right, last one. I usually try to make it somewhat meaningful or inspiring. Here we go. Oh, let's read this.
The real reasons they care you aren't drinking tonight.
You aren't drinking.
Yeah, aren't drinking tonight.
Yep.
1, you aren't financing their night out anymore. 2, they can't blame you for their bad behavior.
3,
Mhm.
they realize that they may have a drinking problem.
Mm.
4, they are scared of you outgrowing their friendship.
Mhm.
And 5, misery
Business
loves
loves
company.
company.
Lots of step zero on that.
Yeah, think about it. I like that off to the
Yeah,
side. It
think
says,
about it.
think about it.
Yes.
Good
And
stuff.
yes, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. And I will absolutely post the link. Any other things that you want to just attract people to find this book, to find your workshops, to find anything that we've talked about?
Yeah. Everything about us or about Back to Basics can be found on our website. We do have a Facebook page, Back to Basics of Recovery,
Yes.
where you can find us. And I post our flyers in there when we're going to have a workshop, or if we know of somebody who's having a workshop and they've sent us a flyer, we do post that on there because we do like for people to know where they can find a Back to Basics workshop or meeting.
Wonderful.
Obviously, you and I aren't the only people doing this. There's 800 to 900 meetings a week
Yes.
throughout the country, and there are a dedicated group of people who are doing the seminars
Yeah.
on weekends,
Mhm.
whether it be the Yellow Book, whether it be the
Beige.
NA literature, the Beige Book, the OA literature, the Al-Anon literature. It just goes
Yeah.
on and on and on.
The Al-Anon version is called Let It Begin With Me.
Wow.
And they
Yes.
do have a Facebook page as well. And so does the NA.
Work the steps or die.
Work the Steps or Die. So you can find that information for those on their pages.
And the key to this is it's not necessarily what is in a book that works. It's the
Mhm.
process that works.
Absolutely.
That is the key. If you're an NA, the basic text and the how and why works. If you're an OA, the OA literature works. If you're an Al-Anon, that literature works. It's the process that works. 4 1-hour sessions.
And it's a beautiful thing because every time I've gone through the steps, gone to one of these workshops, reread the book, I get something new. I learn something more about myself. I get to up that level of life. And, it's never, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful for you guys, this book and this program and Back to Basic. I mean, it's got to come back. I really feel like if they really want those high percentages back, it's got to go back to what worked, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There's hundreds of thousands of people who believe that and are following up by actually putting it into action.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a flash in the pan. This has been going down since 1995, and it just gets bigger and better with each passing year.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. Listeners, thank you for listening. And guess Wally, Britt, thank you for joining me. And I hope everybody has a great week and we will keep in touch. Bye.
Yes, we
Have a good
will.
night.
And you can invite us back anytime.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'd be honored. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Here comes the amazing music. You guys can cut out if you want. End music.